Shortly after an altercation with my mom, she called the police and lied and told them that I attacked her. So I was then taken to juvenile center where I met a girl who I bunked with. She had been abused and raped and had been in and out of that detention center a few different times. So she gave me the rundown on everything. She laughed at me the very first time she met me because she could tell that it was my very first time being locked up. I met a multitude of young women while playing spades and got to hear all their stories of being abused and neglected. We were just a group of young teens who were just left out to die, like tree branches getting ready to be thrown into the fire. Our families didn't care about us, and to the system, we were just another number. I stayed in the detention center for about a week or so before my dad came to pick me up. I remember feeling overjoyed and happy that someone in my family cared about me. As I got into the car, I felt so relieved that I could just live with my dad and be protected by him. But the whole car ride, he was silent. He didn't say a word. And we pulled into a parking lot, parked, turned off the car, and for a few seconds, he just sat there quiet. He then said, "I can't keep you." He said, "My lifestyle won't allow me to." Then he got out the car, came around to my side, and opened my door. I followed him into this building, still not even knowing where we were going. We went into an office, sat down, and a lady came in. I just was so heartbroken that I didn't even hear none of the conversation that him or this lady had. I just remember him signing some paperwork, shaking the lady's hands, and leaving. No hug, no kiss, no goodbye, nothing. The lady explained to me that my dad signed over his parental rights and that I was going to be staying in this shelter. She then took me around, gave me a tour, showed me where everything was, went over the house rules, took me to my room, and told me this is where I was going to be sleeping. The whole night I just cried, feeling alone and abandoned and neglected by everyone in my family. The very next day, I went into the common room and met everyone that was residing at that shelter. During the time that I was in the common room, I remember seeing my aunt pull up. I got so excited, like, yes, someone is here to get me, thank you. As I watched her get out her car, she went to her trunk, grabbed 2 full black trash bags, and brought them inside. 3 minutes later, she went back to her car, got in, and drove off. I was then called to the front office, and they explained that there were some clothes that was dropped off for me. I grabbed my belongings, went to my room, and I cried. And at that very moment, I told myself I hated my family, and I was so done with every single one of them. I shortly after got a roommate. I realized that we were in identical situations. She was in an abusive household, ran away, and was picked up by the police and brought to that shelter. She was like the sister that I never had. She even pierced my nose with a thumbtack because I wanted a nose ring so bad. We shared in each other's pain and had each other's back. A few weeks in, I was content with where I was. The shelter had nightly meetings where we would talk about the things that made us happy or sad. And on the paper that they gave us, I wrote that I was sad because I had no one to celebrate my birthday with. After collecting the paperwork, the group leader called me over and asked me to speak on how I felt. I stood up and I told everyone how I felt, and I started crying. And everyone in the group got up and hugged me. And at that very moment, I felt so loved. Everyone at that shelter home greeted you with a warm, loving smile and made you feel wanted and made you feel like a human being. I never felt unwanted or like an outsider living there. The very next day, I went to school like normal with my girl, and I came back to the shelter. As I walked in, there were strings and balloons and confetti and cookies and a birthday cake for me. Whoever put it together, I can tell that they put in a lot of work just to make me feel special. And I was the happiest I had been in years. I was just so excited and happy and felt nothing but a world full of love. That someone cared enough about me just to see a smile on my face and to celebrate the day that I was born. But unfortunately, that very same day, 2 ladies came to pick me up and took me to my foster care home. Throughout the years, I have met women who have experienced being in the shelter, and some of those experiences are good and some of those experiences are bad. But mine, as a 13, 14-year-old teenager, is something that I would never forget. It was the people there that made me feel loved. I learned from that situation that God brings people into your life to help you cope and to minister to you. And even though I felt abandoned by my family, God brought people in my life that brought me hope when my heart was shattered. God showed me love in my suffering. God gave me peace in my storm. Whether you're a teen or an adult, experiencing living in a shelter, look around to the people that God has placed into your life, and you will see the love that you may not be feeling. And just know that it will get better. One thing that I always wished for when I was younger was someone just to understand me and to love me. And now I am that person that can understand and have nothing but love in my heart to give. See, what people use for bad, God can turn around and use it for good. Through my situation of being in the shelter, my family put me there to hurt me. But that situation turned around and put me in a situation where I was able to help other people cope. While I was in the shelter and heartbroken, God brought those people to me to help me get through, to show me the love that I didn't feel, and to get through that very tough situation that I was in at that time. And now I'm able to help teenagers, women, and men with their experiences of being in a shelter. I know while I was in the shelter, everything seemed so dark. But because of the people that were there, the staff and the residents, they helped me to have hope and to keep the faith that everything was going to be okay, even though it did not look good for me. I had no clue whether I was coming or going, but I knew that the people that were there showed me love, and they showed me how to love. They showed me that in the midst of disaster, that we can still give love. Because my family showed me such evilness, God showed me that there were people in the world that were kind-hearted and loving. And it made me want to be that person. And to this very day, because of that situation, I am that person. No matter your situation and no matter what it is that you are going through, look around at the people that are around you and just know how your love can change someone's life. Because of me being in that shelter has changed my life dramatically in ways that I can't even explain. But I'm so thankful that I went through that situation, even though at that time it was painful and it was hurtful. I am still thankful that I went through it because it made me exactly who I am, and it showed me a love in a whole different way, in a whole nother form. If you have ever experienced being in a shelter or are in a shelter, please share your story. There's so many people in this world that had to experience living in a shelter or is living in a shelter. And hearing your experience could help shape their life for the better. If it wasn't for the strangers that showed me so much love and compassion, I don't know where I would be today. So it takes you to share your story to the world, to those who need to hear it, to those who need to hear that you've been through it and you survived. And guess what? I made it through and I survived. And it made me such a better woman to this day. Please, if you've ever been in a shelter, going to a shelter, or are in a shelter, please share your story. You never know whose life you can change. You never know who you can influence and how your influence can change someone else's life. Thank you so much for hearing my story and watching my video. And just know that God loves you. And no matter what you go through in this life, He got your back. You strong and you can make it. Above all else, God loves you, I love you, and I wish you the best in everything that you do. Take care.